Failure, we could speak all day about failure, because failure, when we all talk about it academically, we accept the fact you don't learn unless you've failed. So we accept that academically. Nobody, I would challenge, accepts that personally. People do not. Human nature, the environment, social media, press, culture, whatever it is, does not accept failure. So that's a contradiction in terms. It's a magnificent contradiction. What you have to do, in my experience, my opinion, is try and reconcile the two of them. So I'll tell you how I treat failure. I treat failure as that's the place I'm going to learn. I don't want to die in the process. I don't want to bust a business in the process. I don't want to break a team in the process. But we need to reconcile the two. Because unless you fail, I'd say the best place to learn, and it's universal. I used to think maybe it doesn't happen in America because they've got a more positive culture, or maybe it happens a lot in the UK. And then when you go around the world, you realise actually it's exactly the same. It's just we interpret it maybe slightly different ways. So failure for me is how do you personally reconcile it? And I'll give you a big tip I do. And it might sound a little bit of, about how your mindset and how you approach, and it is, you need to look into failure. So if I start a project, start a business, I cover off the worst case. What's the worst case in this situation? So the worst case, it's bust. Or the worst case, I get rejected. In the current, what I'm doing with MCR Pathways is far more important than what I've ever done in business, as I'll touch on. So I cover off the worst case. I'm going to get rejected. This isn't going to work. Something's going to go spectacularly wrong. I think about it. I dwell on it. I cover off what exactly would I do in that situation. And then I box it off, because in my head, I've covered the worst case scenario. What is it? I've covered it. I've tried to think about how I'd react and respond. It's then boxed. I will not revisit that box. I've thought about it. I'm confident in it. I'll then look at how do I avoid it. But that mental process I find is freedom. What I see in individuals that get captured by the sense and fear of failure is it's fear of the unknown. It's not actually fear of failure in itself. It's just unknown, out of control. What's going to happen? I'm completely out of control. I'm impotent. I cannot do anything. If you've considered what that scenario is, but then don't dwell on it because you get what you imagine you'll get. I'm a passionate advocate of that. So you box it, you lock it, you sit it there, you maybe occasionally look at it, you never go back into it, but you know what's in it. So what do I fear? Nothing, because it's certain. The other truth of the matter is you only fail when you give up. It's extraordinary how many people don't know that. So therefore in my head, I know what it looks like. I'm never going to give up, so I'm never going to fail. And that is the mental process that I think we have to take ourselves through. And actually, when you put it back even in a UK sense, in a Scottish sense, because we, on occasions, and I do think it's the truth of the matter, can really dwell too much on the negative, and therefore, what do we get? Again, you get, it's like, I've got a picture, actually I gave it to my son, but I've got a picture of, two wolves. One is really aggressive and one is the one you want to be with. Wolves it literally is a painted picture. You get the one you feed. So if I feed the positive one, if I feed the one that's going to take me places, then that's what I'm going to get. If I feed the negativity and I feed failure and I feed all the things, that's what comes into my future. There's no question of that. That's the case in my experience. And my experience, as you know, is dropping into organizations that really are broken. They're broken, they're not performing as they should be, and it can be two extremes. It can be they're not really performing as they should be, it could and should be better, and investors are disappointed, management's disappointed, service is not good. That's one end. The other end of the extreme is it's really in trouble. It's terminal. And the situation in those is identical in my experience. It's how people think. Sure, there's stuff that needs to be sorted financially, systemically, all the bits, but fundamentally what you're left with is how people think.